Chapter 2. The second instruction to the sons of Noah speaks of the prohibition to curse God. In fact, teaching can be looked at from both directions. From the positive direction, meaning to bless God, and on the other hand to curse God. In fact, from both directions it will look almost the same. In other words, the teaching basically seeks to give thanks to God for the things that happen to us in life. Basically both about the honey and the sting that is in life. That is, if we seek to receive the good of God, why not accept the bad as well? It is said that if you believe that you can spoil, you can believe that you can also fix. Hence the prohibition to curse God is a logical prohibition because of the fickle nature of man. Man, as a rational being at least according to the economic definition of his behavior, prefers to gain rather than lose. Or as Freud states it, he sought pleasure and disliked pain. Therefore, if the person accepts only the good but is not ready to accept the bad, he becomes an immoral person. This is because he shows one-sided self-interested behavior. Such behavior borders on hypocrisy and it leads the person to negative thoughts. Especially in view of the fact that he may only care about himself in order to maximize the pleasure or the good. In the process, he may step on others for his own happiness. Moreover, such behavior even leads to the other side of the coin. That is, he will begin to feel that he deserves it and will demand that it be given to him even though sometimes he does not deserve it. In other words, a person shows selfish behavior and indifference to others, may disrespect other people's property, may disrespect other people's lives, and may actually also cause suffering to others in order to obtain what he believes he deserves by virtue, even though we actually deserve everything by divine grace alone. That is why this instruction is very important, since failure to comply with this instruction may lead a person to sin in the following instructions, such as the prohibition of murder, the prohibition of theft, and even the prohibition of incest. Since a person is only looking for his own happiness, without considering others, that person will act in any way to find and achieve his private happiness, and it doesn't matter to him who are the victims who fall along the way. This teaching is especially important in our age today, an era in which the force influencing people is pseudo-psychological instructions that come from the school of those drugged students of the 60s. Who sought to rebel against their parents and change the beacon from being a member of the group to being an individual independent of the group. What we see today may well express this. When in the Western countries pseudo-scientific questions of gender are debated while putting world order and nature into question, showing strange genders that nature does not show, and all in the name of the fake progress they are trying to promote. When the individual sees himself above the society that created him, protects him and provides him with all his needs, modern life does divert the relationship between people from a system of face-to-face relationships of closeness and personal and human touch towards a contractual relationship where everything is determined through a contractual agreement at one level or another. In a system of contractual relations, there is no place for a person's private personality, but the paradox is that people think they are free and special. When there is a system of contract relations, it does not matter the individual who enters into the contract is uniform and suitable for everyone. What changes is the person's name and various other technical details. The essence of the contract remains the same for everyone. However, when a person feels that he is special, he does not relate to others and sees others as a competitor, and not a partner, in the existence of human existence. Thus it will always lead to the limitlessness of human behavior. From this it is clearly seen that in Western countries, when there is no definition for society, there is no definition for the concept that presents deviance. The social deviation is great in all its forms: use of violence, robbery and theft, murder, sale of illegal drugs, pornography hacks and more. The people who consider themselves individuals do not consider others and are therefore able to commit crimes against them. They see themselves as in the center and the rest are not important at all. When we say thank you, please and acknowledge the favor done to us, we first and foremost become members of the existing human fabric. See others as a partner and ask to be taken into account. In order to know how to consider others, you need to learn the source of things. The source of all good things in the world is God, so knowing goodness inevitably leads to knowing God, and this leads to more moral behavior. Since the Hebrew Bible teaches us that there is only one God, He is the source of good and the source of evil in the world. Unlike in pagan religions where there is a duality of control, the good God versus the evil God who are fighting between them. As for example in the Zoroastrian religion, which shows the struggle between the good God and the light against the evil God of darkness. By the way, both Christianity and Islam suffer from the same disease of duality, which automatically makes them a pagan religion. Both Christianity and Islam believe that Satan has his own will and can act on his own. In contrast, Judaism, which is the only existing monotheistic religion, sees Satan as an angel who receives instructions from God. There are examples of this in the Hebrew Bible, for example in the book of Job where the devil receives instructions from God, as well as in the book of Zechariah and more. From this, the conclusion is simple: since God is the source of good and evil in the world, one should not curse God when receiving bad. One must accept the bad with the good and bless the thank you God. Because that's the only way we can answer this instruction and become good people who are able to judge things morally. The very word Satan, which is a Hebrew word that means a stumbling block, an obstacle or something that gets in the way, defines the role of Satan, such as to hinder a person and why. In order to uphold the concept of free choice. That is, if a person has no choice but to behave like a robot without free choice, then all of God's work becomes unserious. People by force of habit will only do good because they are aimed at it. For example, in Judaism, the angels are seen as beings without any will, and so they will always behave perfectly as they were created. A real robot that executes commands that cannot deviate from the commands that make up its hardware. However, human beings were given the choice. This right to choose is free. A person can choose to worship God, to be a good and moral person, or to be an immoral person. Everything depends on him. That's why we must put this thing to the test. The entire book of Job presents the concept of this free choice. When this is how his faith is expressed, is it true faith or conditional faith? 2. Test whether Job's faith is a faith that comes from his personal recognition and desire to be a moral person who sticks to God. God allows Satan, who is an angel who acts on God's instructions, to put Job to the test. The test was to take everything from him and see if he would continue his faith in God. This is exactly what Viktor Frankl is talking about when he describes to us how in the concentration camp the Jewish woman converts her last piece of bread into a candle to light a candle for Shabbat, which is an instruction that is imposed on every Jewish woman to light candles on Shabbat Eve to welcome the Sabbath. The Jewish woman knew she might die of starvation but decided that the commandment of lighting a Shabbat candle was far more important than her own life, making her what Viktor Frankl describes as transcending the state of the body with a sublime state of mind. When the person who has the ability to choose freely chooses to obey God's moral instructions, he actually receives a meaning of truth for his actions. Because being immoral is the easiest thing. After all, we have already said that a person has the material part, which is the majority of his body, with a divine particle which is his soul. As mentioned, a body without a soul is a dead body. What distinguishes a dead person from a living person is the breathing capacity of the living person. 2. Be immoral is really to submit to the whims and desires that a person has, not to accept criticism from anyone and not to consider anyone in order to satisfy yourself with these desires. That's why this instruction becomes important and special, because it may actually drag the person into immoral behavior and hinder him from being in contact with God. A relationship that God is trying to create with all the people on earth, especially in light of his promise in Genesis chapter 9 not to bring another flood that will destroy the world.